Sometime in the early spring of 1876, Sitting Bull climbed to a hilltop seeking a vision. In his dream, a great dust storm swirled down upon a small white cloud that resembled a Lakota village. Through the whirlwind, Sitting Bull could see soldiers marching. The little cloud was swallowed up for a time, but the storm eventually dissipated and the village emerged unharmed. It was an encouraging dream. And in the spring of 1876, the Lakota needed encouragement.
Humanitarians may weep for the poor Indian and tell the wrongs he has suffered, but he is passing away. The American people need the country the Indians now occupy. Many of our people are out of employment. The masses need some new excitement. An Indian war would do no harm, for it must come, sooner or later. Mark Kellogg, Bismarck Tribune.
In his office in Chicago, General Philip Sheridan had already drawn up a plan that would send 3 columns of soldiers to drive Sitting Bull and the other defiant chiefs onto the reservations. One column, led by Brigadier General George Crook, was to move north from Fort Fetterman. Another, under Colonel John Gibbon, was to march east from western Montana. The third, commanded by General Alfred Terry, marched west from Fort Abraham Lincoln. With him went the 566 enlisted men and 31 officers of the 7th Cavalry, led by George Armstrong Custer. They moved out to the tune of The Girl I Left Behind Me.
General George A. Custer, dressed in a dashing suit of buckskin, is prominent everywhere. The general is full of perfect readiness for a fray with the hostile Red Devils. And woe to the body of scalp lifters that comes within reach of himself and brave companions in arms. Bismarck Tribune.
None of the commanders knew precisely where Sitting Bull and his followers were, but they were confident that one column or another would find and destroy them. On June 6th, some 3,000 Lakota and Cheyenne were camped along Rosebud Creek in Montana. There they held their most sacred ritual, a sun dance, in which prayers were offered and vows made to Wakantanka, their great spirit. Sitting Bull slashed his arms 100 times as a sign of sacrifice. Then he had another vision. The soldiers came again to attack his people. As many as grasshoppers, he said. But this time, they were upside down, their horses' hooves in the air, their hats tumbling to the ground as they rode into the Lakota camp.
He has this tremendous vision that he tells the people about, that the soldiers are going to fall into the camp and that there's going to be this great victory. And armed with this vision, the warriors go out looking for somebody to fight.
On the morning of June 17th, General Crook's column had stopped to brew coffee on the bank of the Rosebud, sure that no Indians would dare attack so large a force as theirs. Suddenly, Crazy Horse and more than 500 Sioux and Cheyenne warriors rode down upon them. Sitting Bull's arms were too swollen from the Sundance to fight, but he urged the young men into battle. Crook's command included Crow and Shoshone scouts, eager to fight their enemies, the Cheyenne and Lakota, who had once taken their lands. In the fierce, desperate fight that followed, the Indian scouts twice rescued the soldiers by riding through the Lakota and Cheyenne ranks. Unnerved by the enemy's show of force, Crook withdrew the next morning. The Lakota and Cheyenne moved north and formed a new camp, where for 6 days they celebrated their victory along a winding stream they called the Greasy Grass. Whites called it the Little Bighorn. On June 21st, Custer met on the Yellowstone River with Colonel Gibbon and their superior, Brigadier General Alfred Terry. They knew nothing of Crook's retreat. Terry ordered Gibbon to march to the mouth of the Little Bighorn, while Custer and the 7th Cavalry, if they could locate the Indians, would drive them down the valley toward Gibbon and annihilation. As Custer rode off, Gibbon called out to him, "Now, Custer, don't be greedy. Wait for us." "No," he said, "I will not."
I now have some Crow Scouts with me. They are magnificent-looking men, so much handsomer and more Indian-like than any we have ever seen, and jolly and sportive. Nothing of the gloomy, silent red man about them. They said they had heard that I never abandoned a trail, that when my food gave out, I ate mule. That was the kind of man they wanted to fight under. They were willing to eat mule, too.
I know 5 of those scouts. They were old men when I was a young fella, including my grandfather, White Man Runson.
Why?
With the tribe of Indians, decided to fight other tribes in behalf of the white man. Sioux won't let us forget that. They always say, "You Crows are no good. You're white lovers. You help them fight against us." But they forgot the fact that they came out here to annihilate us, take our land away from us. So there was a matter of protection.
Fearful that Sitting Bull would elude him, Custer pushed his column hard under a merciless prairie sun. 12 miles the first day, 33 the second, 28 the third. The exhausted troopers began to grumble about the man they privately called Hard-Ass. They found the Indians' trail, but did not grasp the full meaning of the fresh layers of pony tracks that seemed to cross and recross it. In the last few days, 3,000 more Indians, Lakota, Arapaho, and Cheyenne, had left the reservations to join Sitting Bull. Their encampment now stretched for 3 miles along the Greasy Grass. In it were more than 6,000 Indians. 1,800 of them were warriors. On the evening of June 24th, Sitting Bull made his way to a ridge that overlooked the encampment. There he made offerings to the Great Spirit and prayed for the protection of his people.